Andrews, and I actually also want to begin my talk by getting you all to stand up for me. But this time, I want you to find a partner standing next to you. Oh, it's nice to see all your faces. And when I say go, I want you to look at your partner in the eyes. Without speaking, I want you just to look at them. Yeah, I know. And I want you to do so until I say stop, okay? Simple as that. Let's give it a try. Ready, set, go. You can do it. And stop. You guys can sit down now. Now that was really strange. That was weird. Maybe it was uncomfortable. Maybe you felt awkward. Maybe you've never looked into someone else's eye for that long before. But it was also strangely powerful. Maybe it changed the way that you felt. Maybe it made you see someone in a different way. And I promise you that you won't forget those 25 seconds anytime soon. It is that unique power and connection between people, physical connection, when you are with another human being in the same physical presence, that I find so interesting and so important to the way that we operate as human beings. Now, the societal importance of interacting face-to-face is something that can be traced back centuries. If we think about the tradition of oratory in ancient Greece and Rome, where speaking to people was a professional competence, or in the medieval university structure, where rhetoric was considered to be a pillar of education, where students learned how to exchange ideas from one mind to another. But the way that we communicate today, in 2016, is incredibly different. The way that we communicate has changed almost completely. We have entered a digital world where communication is instantaneous across continents and networks. At the click of a button, it's fast, it's cheap, it's easy, and it's great. I appreciate social media. I value my ability to reach across the globe and speak to my sister or to my mother, who I haven't seen in a while. I value that. But I am also deeply concerned that face-to-face interactions have moved to the back burner of human communication. And so, just about a year ago, I began to think about what this shift in behavior means. What happens when a child begins to replace face-to-face interactions with digital transactions? What happens when a mother and a father are sitting at the dinner table on their phone as their child watches? What is the difference between asking someone in person and just sending them a text message? Well, it turns out the answer is quite a lot. Social science professor at MIT, Sherry Turkle, argues that conversations are the most human and humanizing thing that we do. They're a dynamic process where we learn about others and about ourselves. Specifically, she argues that face-to-face conversations allow empathy and intimacy to flourish. But when we find ways around face-to-face conversation, when we find ways around it, we begin to detach ourselves from the human on the other end of the message. But when we do look at another human being in the eyes and speak to them, we immediately notice their humanity. We see their posture, their eyes, their tone of voice. We immediately connect with that. Additionally, with the increasing speed of digital technology, we're starting to expect faster answers. We're losing our ability to wait. We're losing our patience. Face-to-face conversations are a relatively slow process. They're spontaneous. They unfold in an unplanned manner. They are open-ended. And therefore, when we practice and when we engage in face-to-face conversations, we learn about patience. We learn how to wait. Professor Frank Partnoy argues that children who are able to learn about patience, learn how to wait for responses, generally have a better ability to interact socially, a better ability to resolve conflict, and an overall happier disposition. So I started to realize that research is catching up with the way that we communicate in this hypermodern world. But still, today, digital communication dominates the way that we interact as humans. Dominates. And maybe it's because face-to-face interactions are transparent and people see you exactly for who you are. There's no sugarcoating it. And that's scary. That is scary. But I argue that this is a fear that we should all be facing every day. Practicing face-to-face conversation as if it were an exercise at the gym, and starting to understand when is the right time to just put down your phone and be with the people around you. Now, it's also not about getting rid of your Facebook. It's not about unplugging completely or moving away from digital communication. No. But it is about understanding what you can learn from another individual when you speak to them face to face. The honesty, the stories, the lessons, the empathy, the unexpected smiles, the humanity. That is what it's about. Now, it's also about understanding that face-to-face communication is a skill. It is a fundamental driver of effectiveness, especially in the modern world. For kids, whether you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a farmer or a businessman, being able to speak to someone in person is a tremendous skill today and one that has to be practiced. If we take the business sphere, for example, Sandy Pentland from MIT argues that face-to-face communication in the midst of this digital boom remains the richest channel of communication. It is dynamic and still the most effective, whether you're selling products, buying products, building networks, sharing ideas. So it's also about understanding that face-to-face conversation is dynamic and complex. It's a form of communication where only 7% of the message is communicated by the words themselves, whereas 38% of the message is transmitted by the way you say those words and 55% by the facial expressions while you say those words. So I began to think, how can I defend this message? How can I defend this idea? And I thought, maybe, just maybe, I could go on a journey to prove how powerful face-to-face conversation is and what face-to-face conversation is capable of. And what better way to spread a message about returning to your roots than going on a journey on foot. So, on August 6th of this year, I will be running across the United States of America, 3,200 miles, 15 miles a day, for 9 months straight, to have thousands and thousands of conversations with people face to face. During my run across the United States, I hope to ask people to share a story with me, and I'll discuss with them why I'm doing this run. Now, I hope that this invites people to think about the importance of face-to-face conversation and maybe help them strike a balance between digital and in-person communication. By compiling, collecting, and sharing these stories, I hope to create an example of what face-to-face communication is possible, what face-to-face communication is capable of. A portrait of America that celebrates the very medium that made it possible. And I don't know what I'm going to find. I have no idea what people are going to say, but that's okay, and that's the point. Just a bit about my journey itself. Without any support vehicle, I'll be running the entire way with a push cart that holds my sleeping bag, tent, water, food, equipment, everything. and I'll be running through Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California. I think that's all of them. But again, this is less about that. It's less about the run itself, the act of running, and it's more about defending a message that hasn't been defended enough. It's about using face-to-face conversation to prove how powerful and how essential it is. So I want you guys, just before I finish up, to think back to that exercise at the beginning and how that sparked something with energy, something that was human, something empathetic. That's what this is about. That's what Let's Talk is about. Face-to-face conversation is too valuable, too important to us to let it erode and drift into the background just because other forms of communication are more convenient or more comfortable. That's the message that I'll be spreading to thousands and thousands of Americans next year. Wish me luck.